Lascio la parola a Fiona Fanning di CEPIS. Credo, I think you can move here because it is free for those who have to read, who have to use the... Sorry. Technologia.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fiona Fanning, and I represent CEPIS. I'm particularly pleased to be here today, not only because of the topic that we are discussing, but also because I live in Brussels. And when I left Brussels, the sky, as it often is, was very grey and it was raining quite heavily. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here where the sun is shining. So a double thanks to AICA, the organisers, for this invitation. I'm going to talk today about some initiatives that are being currently implemented around Europe that have as a goal to boost the ICT profession in Europe. I'll provide you an overview of some of the thinking that's currently at the European scene, in particular around e-competence, and then I'll also give you an innovative and practical example of how these e-competence measures are being brought to life again on a European scale. So I have quite a short presentation. You won't have to listen to me speaking through the entire presentation. There will also be a video that comes as part of it. But all of this, both the presentation and the video, will be in English. So if at any point you find that I'm speaking too fast or you're having trouble following, please do just make a sign to me and I will try to speak a little bit slower to make sure that you can understand. So I have three messages from this presentation. The first is about who we are. So who is CEPIS and why does this topic matter to us? The second is around the European e-competence framework. So what is the ECF? You'll find that I use abbreviations a lot. So anytime I mention the ECF, this refers to the European e-competence framework. Please forgive me, this is another Brussels habit. We create acronyms, abbreviations for everything. And then the final key message today is around the CEPIS e-competence benchmark. So this is the first pan-European application of the ECF, and it is the first and the only tool to bring the ECF to life on a large scale. So to introduce CEPIS. CEPIS stands for the Council of European Professional Informatics Societies. We are a body that has as our members the national informatics societies and computer associations from around Europe. We have 35 national associations that form our membership, and this is in Italy. We, of course, are very pleased to have AICA as our national membership, and we have representatives from 33 countries around Europe. This is, at a conservative estimate, approximately 450,000 IT professionals that we represent through our members. So what do? Our mission comes from recognizing the benefit that informatics and IT has a potential to have on society, on business, and on the economy. And with this in mind, our mission is to improve and promote high standards in informatics, as well as to foster the development of the information society. And we do this by identifying a number of thematic or focus areas. So these are topics that are agreed by all of our members. Imagine getting consensus from 33 countries around Greater Europe. But what is key that at the top of the list is ICT professionalism and skills. Competence development is a very important key component of ICT professionalism. We have other focus areas such as education, digital literacy, green ICT, women in ICT, which is becoming increasingly important, and our newest thematic area, which is research, development, and innovation. So this is who we are. Some of you may be familiar with this image. This is moving to the second key point of this presentation. It's around the European e-competence framework. The ECF was created by SEN CEN is the Centre Européen de la Normalisation, or the European Standards Body. About 10 years ago, CEPIS, working with CEN, CEDEFOP, and the European Commission, recognized the need to create a workshop within CEN that focused on not just the European context, but specifically the standardization needs around e-skills in a European context. And as a result of this, the CEN workshop on ICT skills was created. It became very quickly apparent that even if you transcend the linguistic boundaries within Europe, when it comes to IT competence, we're still not talking the same language. And this just means that when we talk about competence, when we talk about what ICT professionals need to know, we do not have a shared understanding. And given the importance of ICT to the economy, to growth, and to Europe's potential for recovery, and with ICT underpinning not just the ICT sector itself, but almost every sector of the European economy, being able to speak coherently about what ICT professionals need to know all over Europe matters, and it matters a great deal. So the workshop set about creating this common language, and this took the form of a reference framework, and it was called the European E-Competence Framework. And it was intended and is in use by IT practitioners, by companies, by human resource managers, as well as education and training providers who can use it to design ICT curricula. This is what it looks like. And this is very much a whistle-stop tour of the ECF. But essentially, it has 4 dimensions. Dimension 1 looks at 5 e-competence areas that reflect the common ICT business processes, and these are plan, build, run, enable, and manage. The second dimension defines a set of e-competences that are associated with each of the 5 competence areas. The third dimension looks at the proficiency levels of each competence, and these corresponds to the EQF level 3 to 8. And finally, dimension 4, which is not represented on this slide, gives examples of knowledge and skills associated with each competence. This framework can do a lot to facilitate the link between national structures, between national competence frameworks, and of course it can link directly to the EQF. It is essentially a European basis for internationally efficient personnel planning and development, and even much more. As a practical example, and I promised that I would try to bring this to life, I'd like to explain to you a little bit about the European e-competence framework, or the CEPIS e-competence benchmark. CEPIS, working very closely with AICA and some other members, have created this free and online interactive self-assessment tool. This is a tool that can enable current and future ICT professionals to compare, to assess the competences that they need for various ICT roles. It's essentially a career development tool. It is an innovative application in the sense that it is the first pan-European use of the ECF and really is demonstrative of the ECF in action. So this tool is available, and I will provide you with further information about it. It's essentially a self-assessment tool, so there is no additional validation of the information that's provided. It enables professionals to identify the competences that they need by mapping the output against European job profiles. Another output of the CEN workshop has been to establish 21 job profiles. The result of this tool, when the individual goes online to use this tool or service, the result is a competence gap analysis. So this tells each and every individual what competences they lack, they hold insufficient, or they hold in excess against a given ICT profile. It also enables them to map themselves against other ICT profiles, so jobs that they may aspire to. At this point, I am going to show you a very brief video that will guide you through the benchmark in detail.
Benchmark is a free online interactive tool that enables current and future ICT professionals to identify the competencies they need for various ICT roles and career paths. The CPSE Competence Benchmark helps to tackle the ICT skills gaps and mismatches, and it facilitates better career pathways within the ICT profession by assessing how the competencies held by European ICT professionals match today's labor market needs. The CPSE Competence Benchmark is powered by the European e-Competence Framework, and it supports the goals of the European Commission's Grand Coalition for Digital Jobs. In this video, we will briefly explain what the CPSE Competence Benchmark is, and we will show you how it works step by step. We'll also explain why you'll want to use it, whether you're an individual or an organization. Finally, we'll briefly present the European e-Competence Framework, which is the engine of this tool. Now let's have a closer look at the CPSE Competence Benchmark to find out how it works practically. The first step is to visit the webpage cpsecompetence-benchmark.org and to click on Register to create a personal account. Enter your name, select a username and password, and then read and agree with the privacy statement. After that, you will be asked to provide some personal information and to select the ICT professional profile that best describes your current or future job. In case of doubt, click on the question mark to download a guide which will help you select the right ICT professional profile. These profiles were created by the STEM workshop on ICT skills. The questionnaire is divided in 5 areas of competencies: plan, build, run, enable, and manage. These areas of competencies are derived from the ICT business processes, and they are based on the European e-Competence Framework. More on this later. Each area is made of a series of competencies, and you will be asked to choose your current competence level for each of them. A clear definition is provided for each competence. For more detail, you can click on the magnifying glass next to each competence to see knowledge and skills samples. Once you've finished, save your results and click on View Personal Results. You can also save your answers at any time and come back to complete them later. Let's have a look at the results page. As you can see on the screen, your results will be represented in a graphic that shows the level of competence you possess for the represented professional profile. The green areas show the competences required by the represented profile. The red areas indicate the competences required where you have a deficiency. The blue areas show the competences you have that exceed those required by the represented profile. Your results are summarized in a proximity index, which gives an indication of how your competences match the requirements of a specific job profile. The graphic will always show the profile to which you have the closest match, regardless of your current role. On the left side of this page, you can also see a proximity index to the other job profile. If you scroll down, the CPSE Competence Benchmark will indicate the competences you should develop further to better match with the selected job profile. The system will also indicate the competences you possess in greater depth than required by this profile. There are many benefits for taking the CPSE Competence Benchmark. You will receive a personal competence gap analysis report that will help you compare your competences against those required for a range of European ICT professional profiles. You will also gain an increased awareness of your strengths and weakness against the European e-Competence Framework, and you will be able to identify training and professional development opportunities. Thirdly, you will be able to express your competences against the European e-Competence Framework and how they are linked to the European Qualifications Framework levels. This may assist your labor mobility. Companies can also use the CPSE Competence Benchmark to assess individuals as well as entire departments, identify workforce gaps, and on the basis of these results, conduct efficient personal planning and development. The CPSE Competence Benchmark is powered by the European e-Competence Framework, the common language for ICT practitioner and manager competences in Europe, created by the STEM workshop on ICT skills. The European e-Competence Framework is a reference framework of 36 ICT competences that can be used and understood by ICT user and supply companies, the public sector, educational and social partners across Europe. By taking the CPSE Competence Benchmark, individuals will be able to self-assess their IT competences against this recognized European framework. In this video, we've seen what the CPSE Competence Benchmark is and how it works. We've explained why you want to use it, whether you're an individual or an organization. We also had a quick look at what powers the tool, the European e-competence framework. To find out more about the CIPES e-competence benchmark, visit cipes.org/e-competence benchmark.
Okay. In running this project, we have a couple of outputs or deliverables in mind. So as you've seen, when you go online, when you interact with this tool and service, every individual who does that will get an immediate output, which is this competence gap analysis against their job profiles. In addition to this, there are two other outputs that will come as a result of the project overall. One is on a country level. This initiative is run currently in the majority of countries of Europe, 24 at the moment, by the CIPES members, by the computer societies in Europe. In collecting all of these, let's say, self-assessments, we find that we have an enormous amount of very interesting and important data. And this enables us, for each participating country, to produce a country report that essentially provides a snapshot or an overview of the ICT professional landscape and the state of professional competences in that country. Not only that, with so many countries participating, we can also aggregate all of this information at a European level. This enables us to produce the same kind of snapshot, the same kind of information about ICT professional development, about ICT competence within Europe on a very large scale. And this information is tremendously useful on a number of levels, but in particular for evidence-based policy planning. So I know we're a little bit tight for time, so I won't talk too much, I think, about these slides. I think they've been covered in the video. Suffice to say that there are really some powerful motivators for each of the target groups. Individuals, it's obviously receiving this competence gap analysis, being able to benchmark yourself against European standards, being able to reference that to the EQF, and to communicate their competencies across borders, which of course can facilitate mobility. In the Europe that we live in today, where there are skills gaps and shortages, this is obviously, professional mobility is obviously critical. For organizations, assessing individuals within departments and assessing entire departments helps employers and human resource departments identify the workforce gaps and better conduct and plan training and CPD, continuous professional development. So this campaign has been launched in April this year, and it's been launched specifically in tandem to a number of high-level political initiatives, which I will talk a little bit about. To date, we have actually 24 countries involved, and the project will be ongoing until early 2004, where we will have a number of national reports as well as the pan-European reports published, along with some EU-level policy recommendations. I mentioned that the timing for the release of the CIPES e-competence benchmark in April was aligned specifically with some very high-level political initiatives, and this is specifically the Grand Coalition for Digital Jobs. The Grand Coalition has been an initiative of the European Commission and has essentially two objectives. One is to reduce the skills gaps and mismatches of ICT professionals in Europe, and the second is to address the decline in supply of ICT professionals to the market. CIPES launched the e-competence benchmark as part of a pledge to support the objectives of the Grand Coalition. At the World Economic Forum earlier this year in Davos, Vice President of the European Commission, Commissioner Cruz, Nelly Cruz, held a press conference and accompanied that with a press release which cited CIPES, along with some other stakeholders, as one of the primary leaders in taking action to bridge the skills gap around Europe. In addition to that, or shortly after Davos, the formal launch of the Grand Coalition took place in Brussels. Just to give you an idea of the political clout behind this, the Grand Coalition was formally launched by Barroso, the President of the European Commission. At that same event, we had Vice President Kroes, who is really driving this initiative, along with 2 other commissioners. We had, actually 3. We had Vasiliou from Education, we had the Commissioner for Employment, Laszlo Andor, and we had the Italian Commissioner, Tajani, who is also supporting this. So those of you who are familiar with Brussels, you may realize that any kind of cross-DG collaboration such as this, or any initiative where you have not just 2 but actual 4 commissioners working together, is something that it's a very heavy-hitting political lineup. I'm pleased to say that we were invited to present the CPC competence benchmark, and it was recognized by this group of commissioners as one of the most important pledges made to the Grand Coalition. Subsequent to that, I received a letter from actually the Italian Commissioner, Vice President Tajani, addressed to me personally, just in case we weren't keenly aware of the stakes here. And the importance or the significance of having a Vice President of the European Commission write to us and tell us, first of all, what a wonderful job we were doing and how he very much supports CPAS's leadership in terms of competence and the ECF and professional development. He says, I'm sure that CPAS will continue to take leadership to provide concrete improvements for ICT professionalism in Europe. And then the final little bit, just to make sure that we really understand the pressure and that we hear that he is watching us, he says that he'll be following the pledge very closely, which I perceive to be both supportive and slightly threatening as well. We're being very closely watched. So this is a link that you will find to the CPC competence benchmark. It is available currently, and I encourage you to go to this URL and to use it and to try it. If you have any feedback, I would be very appreciative and very welcome to receive that feedback. You can also go to the website of cpas.org and you'll find a link to the benchmark on that site. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope I didn't go too much over time.
Thank you very much. You are perfect in terms of time schedule, but even the contents were so interesting with respect to 2 other keywords we could take into account. One is measurement, since using those tools you presented here, we can perform some benchmarking, measuring competencies. That's really interesting when we think in terms of mobility of resources, of human resources in Europe. So thank you very much, because I didn't realize that before. It's my fault, not yours, of course, but thanks very much. And now we can start. Possiamo iniziare a questo punto da questa, diciamo così, chiosa molto interessante che in qualche modo si ricollega a quello che è stato detto prima nell'ambito della sessione dedicata ai makers. In effetti ricordiamo anche il termine standard, oltre a quello di competenze, e qui abbiamo avuto una chiara rappresentazione. E certo, prima ci hanno un po' spaventato, no? Perché siamo entrati molto nel clima passionale con cui è stata affrontato il tema diciamo così, dell'autoimprenditorialità, e adesso entriamo in quello che prima sembrava essere addirittura una minaccia, e cioè il contesto della legge, delle regole. E probabilmente su questo punto sono convinto che il nostro collega al tavolo, Roberto Pettenello, per esperienze ben note, potrà darci un quadro nell'ambito dei 10 minuti che sono a sua disposizione, 10 minuti contati al secondo. Prego, Roberto, grazie.